Welcome back to the Exempt List. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and are set up for a Happy New Year. It's your host, Charles McDonald, and we are going to talk about everything that we can remember that happened this past weekend. I got Frank Schwab with me to figure it out, and we will be right back. Frank, how was your Christmas?
It was good, but I mean, the NFL did us no favors, man. Like, before we started recording, we're like, me, you, and our producer Stone are like, you want to talk about anything from Sunday? And I'm like, what happened Sunday? It seemed like 5 months ago. Like, the NFL putting 3 games on Christmas is not our friend. Do not do this again, NFL. But at least they gave us some intrigue. I expected at least 2 of those games to be garbage, and the one that was garbage, I didn't expect coming. I thought that was going to be close. So, hey, yeah. It was good. But by the way, it was a good Christmas. How was yours? Everything go well? Everything good out by you?
Oh, I had a fantastic Christmas. I got a new speaker set from my mom. My aunt got me a Instacart gift card, which is really cool for the lazy millennials like myself who don't always like to walk 2 blocks to the grocery store in Brooklyn to get food. Sometimes you need it delivered so you don't have to hand cook it yourself. I mean, it was a good Christmas. For those of you who don't know, Frank is our Yahoo Sports NFL and betting extraordinaire, and I would like to agree with him that maybe next year we don't need to play all these Saturday games. I understand that the legislation allows it once December is done and we can get back to, NFL dominating the schedule. But when you get to the Sunday, when you already have Thursday, Saturday, and Monday filled up with games, it leaves us pretty bare. To me, that's what I was like, there's only 16 teams. That's right. So or 32 teams, 16 matchups. So if you run through 5 of them on days where you don't usually play, or 6 of them even, then you end up where you have to put New England and Denver in the primetime slot. And to be honest with you, that was the first primetime game this season that I did not watch 1 second of live. Wow. And I was like, you know what? It's Christmas Eve. I don't need this. I can always rewatch it the next day or the day after that. So I stood away, and I'm pretty proud of myself.
And that is not bad. Yeah, for nobody weeps for us, right? But like for NFL writers who have to watch every game, it's like, oh, okay, now we get Christmas Eve, Broncos Patriots. It ended up being a really good game, actually. Really interesting. But man, the NFL needs to chill. The NFL, like, I get it. You want to dominate every single day of the year, but maybe just throw a couple extra games on Sunday. I'm good with that. It was weird having only 6 games on Sunday, but the NFL, man, they're gonna be playing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Like they're gonna somehow, some way make this a 7-day-a-week thing.
It's coming. So for those of you who usually listen to the podcast, we start with the funny things from the weekend, and I thought that was a good place to start, where the Broncos lose to the Patriots. And I think it's funny because Patriots fans, I should say, have been in this space recently where they are like actively rooting for the team to lose because well, obviously it's such a stark contrast from where they've been over the past 20 years with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick basically running that side of the sport in the AFC until Patrick Mahomes came along. But they won this past weekend, which has dropped them to the 4th overall pick in the draft for next year with 2 weeks left in the season. So, we're kind of getting close to what the final draft order is going to be. I think Carolina, or I guess the Bears, have a chance to clinch the first pick in the draft next week if the Panthers lose and the Bears win, because that will solidify them with the worst record. And now we have some jumbling underneath that where the Cardinals are the 2nd pick in the draft and the Commanders now have the 3rd, where the Patriots are moving to 4th, which is a big deal. Big deal for Patriots fans because you need a quarterback desperately. I don't think that anyone is going to say that Bailey Zappi is the answer moving into next year. They've already decided that they're done with this Mac Jones experience. I think Mac Jones seems done with his Patriots experience too. So you kind of need those top 2 picks if you're going to get Caleb Williams or Drake May, because it doesn't really seem like there's been any inclination that those guys will not be the first 2 picks in the 2024 draft. Drake May has already officially declared. I don't think Caleb has, but he has stated that he's not going to play in the bowl game, which is, you know what's coming after that. And this is bad for me personally because I am a huge fan of Marvin Harrison Jr. And I feel like every day that we get, every time we get a non-Cardinals team in the top 2, or one of those guys falls out, like the Patriots have fallen to 4, every day we get a closer chance where Marvin Harrison Jr. ends up on a team without a quarterback. And that, to me, that is just like the worst possible scenario where, we're watching these guys and how they're performing at wide receiver for the past few years and seeing how dominant and easy it is for them to kind of get up to that second level or play, like an all-pro pretty easily. But you still got to have the quarterback talent to have that available. And I need Marvin to not end up playing with Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones or whoever they shoehorn in there. That's not a top 5 pick, which is one of the few ways that you can get a quarterback nowadays.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't want Marvin wasting away. I don't want him being Justin Jefferson catching medicine balls from Nick Mullins. Come on.
That game was so bad this weekend.
Oh, my, that was such a... I made the joke before that I didn't realize Jameis Winston got himself traded. We didn't know it and just was under the pseudonym Nick Mullins, because every pass was this could be the worst interception we've seen all season or some 60-yard highlight. And there's no in between at all. It is just a roller coaster every single play with Nick Mullins. But
dude,
hey, it was wild. By the way, going back to Sunday night, I'm sure this happens. It probably happens every year, right? But I can't remember scrolling through my timeline and Patriots and Broncos fans are both rooting against Chad Ryland to make that field goal. Everybody was oh no. Broncos and Patriots fans wanted to lose that, wanted the Broncos to win that game, Patriots to lose, because Patriots fans know, you get the 3rd pick in a 2-guy draft. I get Marvin Harrison's great. I get that. But you need a quarterback. And all of a sudden, if you're the Cardinals, it's not as easy as, they could just trade up with the Cardinals. Well, okay. Could cost you a couple first-round picks because they're going to get so many calls for that pick or they might just decide, hey, we're done with Kyler. We're just going to go on with a new quarterback. Well, whatever they decide, they all of a sudden hold all the cards in the draft at number 2, and they could go get a Bryce Young type of deal like the Bears got last year. The Patriots are just sitting there at 3 or 4. Like you said, they dropped out of 4. And you're going to draft an offensive tackle? After all this losing this season, and Patriots fans being yes, we're going to get our quarterback. You're going to draft the Penn State tackle? Really? That's going to get your fan base fired up? He's a great player, don't get me wrong. But, man, they screwed up. And I think everybody realizes that. But that goes to teams don't tank, man. Coaches put too much time into this stuff. Players put too much effort into it. They don't tank. It does not happen.
Right.
They want to go out and win because life is better when you win. And they don't care about Drake May. You think Bailey Zappi cares? No. That's got to take his job.
See, that's why I think people get something like the tanking stuff misconstrued. It's a front office could put together a team that probably won't net them a whole lot of wins, but when you put on those pads and you're sitting, or you're a coach and you're sitting 50 hours a week trying to game plan for the next game, you're not going out there and losing. And also, you can't go out there and not try because you'll get hurt very, very significantly if you're not putting all your effort into staying upright and protecting yourself on the field. And I think, the fact that I'm looking at this situation with the Patriots and saying, if you add Marvin Harrison Jr. to this offense, nothing changes for you, fundamentally, until you figure out all the offensive line. You need to figure out wide receiver 2 and 3, probably, because as we saw, they just let Jacoby Myers walk into free agency. That seems like kind of a mistake based on where the Raiders have been able to perform with their offense since Josh McDaniels was fired. You need to get your tight end situation stay, offensive line, wide receivers, the whole thing's a mess. So I wonder if the Patriots are going to be a team that trades down, but I think we can figure that out a little bit later in the offseason when we actually start, talking more draft stuff. But the Patriots, they play Buffalo and the Jets over the final 2 weeks of the season. They got a chance against the Jets. Not sure that they're looking so great against the Bills right now.
Oh, no, man. The Bills. You saw them play Saturday.
I did.
My God. What are the Bills doing?
But I also saw them play on Sunday against the Cowboys,
Yeah, I get it. I don't get, man, every time I want to trust the Bills. Every time. It's I'm watching, I'm you're really going to lose the Easton stick today, aren't you? You're going to go ahead and lose the Easton stick. All right. Good job, Bills. They frustrate me, man.
Yeah, very frustrating. But we'll get to them a little bit later when we talk about some of the more the contenders in the league. I thought the last funny moment from a pretty, I think this weekend wasn't all that funny, but there were a lot of good games that ended up being pretty thrilling. The Panthers team almost got a win against the Packers. Hey. That was very, unforeseen.
Bryce finally showed up. Bryce
he did.
Made some plays.
That was easily the best game of his season.
Easily. Whatever second place is, it's like Gretzky versus the field, man. Like
the second place might be the week before where they scored 9 points, which is
right.
where he put together the drive to beat the Falcons.
That is the Packers' pass defense right now. You let Baker Mayfield throw up 400 or some yards of 4 touchdowns on you at home, and then you let Bryce Young look like a superstar after he's done nothing a rookie year. Packers, man, they Joe Barry. What do you? Oh man!
Don't forget the week before that, Tommy DeVito Monday Night Comeback.
That's right. Yeah. Tommy DeVito looked like good. He was a major story, and then that
he gets benched yesterday. But okay. So I guess the other funny thing was Tommy DeVito getting benched because Brian Dable. And you go through like some of the reports from Giants media, who I still follow a bunch of from my days on the beat. They're just, Dable's like, yo, this guy wasn't really factoring into our quarterback decision for next year. It's a nice story. We're glad of what he's done, but I'm paraphrasing here, but let's be real about what this is. The other funny thing from the weekend I want to talk about was Raiders cornerback Jack Jones, who has been a godsend for them since they made the trade, or actually no, since they picked him up off of waivers from the Patriots, I should say. He picked off Patrick Mahomes, pick 6, was about to give the ball to a kid, and it looked like he snatched it away. Now, Jack, I know, which to me is good because the Raiders and the Chiefs are not supposed to like each other. When you are instilling hatred in this little child, that's what's good for the sport. That's what the lifeblood of the sport is built on. But now Jack is trying to say that he took the ball back because some other guy over top of the kid was going to take the ball away from him, so he just...
Oh, come on. He said that.
Come on. Come on.
It's all good, too. I'm glad we put this in the funny section, because I don't want to sit here and be all serious and be like, that was so... As somebody thinking about the children. Like, no, I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. Like, oh, you're a Chiefs fan. Here you go. No. You don't get it. No, like, I thought it was great. I laughed, and I thought it was hilarious because, hey, you're a Chiefs fan. I'm a Raiders player. What do you want from me? You want... No. This is a rivalry, kid. You got to learn. Dude,
I would lose my mind if Falcons fans were giving trinkets to Saints fans. Or Falcons players are giving trinkets to Saints fans.
To be.
No, it's not.
Rivalries are good. Rivalries are good. A little sports hatred is good. Not real hatred. I don't want people hating each other in real life, but the Raiders should hate the Chiefs. The Chiefs should hate the Raiders. The Broncos should hate them both. Like, this is good for sports. I loved it. I legitimately thought it was really, really funny. And
it's good.
I don't want to be all super serious. Like, oh God, no, this society's no. You're a Chiefs fan, kid. You got to learn to live with this.
Yeah, and look, I know the Chiefs fans are going through their quote unquote season from hell since Patrick Mahomes has started. Oh no, you're only 9-6, and this is the first year you won't be able to host every single playoff game that you play in. The Chiefs don't look very good right now.
Charles, I wrote about this power rankings actually, though. Like, I do agree. Like, there's a lot missing there, but
yeah,
would it surprise you or me if in 7 weeks we're like, yeah, I guess we forgot that the Chiefs still have the best coach and best quarterback in the playoff field, and they made this run, right? Like, it's I still can't cross them off. As bad as they can look week to week. And this game was fluky, man. I mean, 2 defensive touchdowns, 7 seconds. And I mean, that just doesn't happen. They still barely lost. I still am not giving up on the Chiefs, mostly because we'll talk about it probably soon. There's not a lot of contenders. There's not a lot of teams where I'm like, the Chiefs cannot beat them. Like, no. So
I wouldn't say that about any team.
No, not anymore. Not after Monday night, I'll tell you that.
No, but the Chiefs... Bro, like you said, if you got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, how am I supposed to say you can't beat anybody? It's just,
it's the Bills are going to be like, oh, we get Mahomes this week. We're going to beat them. No, they're going to be like, uh-oh, like, all right, still Mahomes, still Andy.
I think calling this loss fluky is right because, dude, if I tell you that, hey, we held the other quarterback to 48 net passing yards for 4 quarters of football, you would say, oh, probably blew him out. But no, the Raiders, they didn't score an offensive touchdown. I don't even know if they got all that close to scoring a touchdown throughout the game. I know
that close,
I know Zamir White, he had a pretty good day. His first good game since the Raiders drafted him in the 3rd round out of Georgia. But outside of that, like, it was a pretty bad performance for the Raiders offense. But like you said, 2 defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds. And all you need is a couple of field goals after that to get the Chiefs on the day when they're playing way out of whack. But man, it's just like I've seen the Chiefs be too good, like over the past 5 years, and that's not an insignificant amount of time. I mean, we've been watching this since 2018, where Patrick Mahomes is just firebombing every defense, and it seems like every time they're down late, they have a chance to score. And this year is a little bit different, but still, like through all of this crap that they've had to get through and that we've watched this season where it doesn't look quite the same, they still have a 9-6 record, and they may not be the number 1 seed, but they still kind of control their destiny to the number 2 seed if Baltimore beats Miami and Kansas City wins out, because Kansas City owns tiebreaker over Miami. Like this is this is your worst case scenario Chiefs season. Like they're still absolutely a Super Bowl contender. I think it's just, to me, like this season more so than any other season that's kind of put into context, like, wow, what they have accomplished over the past 5 years is not something that anyone should take lightly at all. Because even when you still look at some of the efficiency metrics for this season, they still top out as like a top 5 or 6 offense that can really move the ball against most teams. They just have these mistakes that are way uncharacteristic from what we've seen from them over the past few years.
Yeah, and one thing working for the Chiefs right now, I think, is for the first time that I can remember anyway in the Mahomes era, they could play this whole nobody's respecting us card. They could be like, oh, everybody's writing us off. Look at all these things people said after we lost to the Raiders. Well, we're going to go show them. The Chiefs are nobody's underdog, right? But you know how the locker room is. They're going to talk themselves into being it's us against the world. They've never been able to really have that kind of mentality because they're always the favorite. I mean, like you said, they get home games every single year in the playoffs. This year, when they go on the road to Buffalo or Miami or wherever the heck they're going to have to go, they can play the whole, hey, we've been disrespected, we're going to show everybody. Whereas, like you said, I believe they're one of, if I'm not wrong, they're one of 2 teams still at DVOA that has a top 10 offense, defense, and special teams. This is not a bad football team. This is just a team that is finding ways to lose. And, I mean, that's uncharacteristic of these guys. But I don't think that it's not an unfixable team. They have their issues for sure, but everybody else does. They're still very good. And again, when you get to the 14, here's our 14-team tournament. Who's the best quarterback and who's the best coach? No offense to Lamar Jackson. No offense to John Harbaugh. No offense to Kyle Shanahan. But if you picked Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I'm fine with it. Like, who would you pick if you're just drafting a coach and a quarterback and you go into playoffs with the best coach, best quarterback, and a top 10 defense? You can make a run still. I'm not writing them off. I think it's a mistake. Yeah. I think it's an absolute mistake to say that they cross this team off, they can't go anywhere.
Yeah, I agreed. And I think this is where the Chiefs are probably having their biggest struggles. So if you just go to Pro Football Reference and sort offensive drives by the percent of drives that end in the turnover, only 4 teams are worse than the Chiefs this year: the Vikings, the Browns, the Jaguars, and the Jets. So, yeah, that's that. Yeah, we'll get to them in a minute.
Oh boy.
But like, that's it. If you're the Chiefs, and it seems like every year you have these teams where it's like, man, if you can just clean up the turnovers, you should be okay. Should we even say that about James Winston's whole career? If you could just clean up the turnovers, you could be like a top 12 quarterback.
Touchdowns a game. James would be great.
It'd be great because does all the other great stuff.
What was the 5,000-yard season? Was it 2020 or 2019? I think it was like there should be a documentary on that season because the dude threw for $5,000 and yet like 34 interceptions, and it was just the craziest season I've ever seen in my life.
It was 30 on the dot, and I remember when the last one came,
the pick six against the Falcons, right?
Yes, in overtime to lose the game. Like the first play of overtime, he threw a pick six to Deion Jones. To close the season out. Wow, so that probably was like 2019, but digress. If there's any team that could actually figure out that bug, hey, let's stop turning the ball over. I think it's
fluky, right? It seems fluky.
Yeah,
I get that Kadarius Toney's kind of he's Kadarius Toney, but not every pass is going to bounce off of his hands right into a defender's chest like it's happened like 5 times this year. Like, It just seems like the Chiefs all of a sudden, if the interception regression, the turnover regression comes, all of a sudden the Chiefs aren't that bad of a team. They blow out the Raiders on Monday if they don't again give up 2 defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds.
They gave up less than 50 passing yards in the entire game of NFL football. At home, right? Like this is still
a weird loss.
Weird, yeah, very weird loss. Like one of those losses, the more you look at it, like how the hell did that happen? And like you have the fumble that got returned for a touchdown was just like a bad exchange where Pacheco's trying to give the ball to Mahomes. Like this is not something that you guys normally practice. So I can understand why that happens. The pick six to Jack Jones was an objectively terrible throw by Mahomes.
That was bad.
That was bad. But like,
that,
yeah, right, exactly. So you're looking at one fluke turnover, one bad turnover, but hey, like that's how it works sometimes. And I think one of the most interesting things coming out of this game is like Antonio Pierce is about to be the Raiders head coach for sure, right? Like,
all right. Do you think Mark screws this up?
No, because he's too. Like, does he have the funds to screw this up? I feel like
I don't know, man. The Raiders are all of a sudden making money. Like the Raiders
true because they're anymore
because they got $750 million out of taxpayers to pay for that great stadium they got. I think Antonio Pierce absolutely should be their coach. Like, why wouldn't he be at this point? And by the way, I've said this a couple times on Twitter over the weekend. How bad does Josh McDaniels look now? You compare what that team was with him to what that team was with Antonio Pierce, who was a linebackers coach who was just like, hey, take over the interim job. You really haven't been expected this. It's night and day how much better they are. But Antonio Pierce deserves to be their coach in 2024. But I don't trust Mark Davis to do the right thing. To be honest, I think that he's got to have this. I got to make this big splashy hire so I feel like a big shot. And, oh, hey, Jim Harbaugh, would you leave Michigan? Like, I don't think he could do the easy, simple move. I really don't. I don't have any faith in him just making the easy call.
That's fair. It's funny you said that because he literally had a quote. I don't remember if it was last week, like this past week or the week before, where he was like, yeah, I don't really have that gift my dad did of being able to identify talent. So sometimes I need a little bit of help with that. So, we know. We know, Mark. We've thumbed. If you look at the Gruden year drafts, you guys had 3 in 1 year and like only hit on 1, which is pretty crazy. Josh Jacobs, who is still with the team now. The Raiders situation is so fascinating. One, because this team clearly is not as bad as it was when McDaniels was there. And I think anytime you hear the stories of teams like parading and going, yes, we did it when our coach gets fired, probably speaks to guys not giving their 100% effort throughout the week.
Chargers 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. And then, that's one of my favorite things. After a coach gets fired, people start talking about how awful it was under that guy and how impersonable they were. And I don't know if we've got the Josh McDaniels story yet, but we're definitely going to find it, I feel like, after how this Raiders season has gone. But also, like, how much do you follow college football, first of all, with the Arizona State stuff? Are you familiar?
I wish I followed it more. It's the one thing that's kind of gotten away from me. So go for it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a ton about it, to be honest.
So Arizona State, they were head coached by Herm Edwards, and Antonio Pierce was basically like second in command for their operation. And during COVID times, they got levied with basically recruiting violations, breaking, when you guys can have players on campus, when you can have contact with stuff, to the point where they left, and Arizona State, to get ahead of NCAA punishment, they impose a 1-year bowl ban on themselves, right? So whatever's coming from the NCAA, which we don't know yet, cannot be good. And I think it's amazing that Antonio Pierce waltzes into a job that could be the Raiders' permanent head coaching job. Herm Edwards walks right back to Sports Center, keeps doing what he was doing, and you just have this college program that is laid to waste. Where some of these guys won't be able to play in any bowl games, and they're going to have recruiting restrictions for Kenny Dillingham, the head coach now. I've always found that part to be interesting. Like, when Jim Harbaugh gets hired by the NFL, if he does, there's been some talk about, well, should an NFL team like impose a suspension on him for what he did in college? And I was like, who cares? And I thought about the Arizona State stuff. I was like, maybe we should think about this just a little bit.
I remember it was funny. Like this, it probably isn't going to happen too much anymore with the NIL stuff. But when like Cam Newton was coming into the NFL, I think Todd Gurley got in trouble for signing stuff, and NFL teams like, well, we don't care. This is stupid. Like, so Cam Newton took $50,000. Who cares? We don't. Why was he $100,000? He was way underpaid as Oliver. Like, so yeah, it's the whole like because everybody knows the NCAA is a joke. So that's probably why Pierce, Herm, nobody cares. Like everybody knows the NCAA is just garbage at this point.
Yeah, it's been funny to me. Whenever I see Herm on Sports Center late night, I was like, damn, you got out of that wholly unscathed. That's powerful. That's powerful right there.
I actually love it. I hate the NCAA is so stupid. Everything the NCAA does sucks.
team that is not getting through these games, or, I guess they got out unscathed yesterday, but have looked bad recently. The Philadelphia Eagles, where I don't know, each week it just feels worse for them.
I've never seen an 11-4 team that's been like every week is you feel bad coming out of their games, right? Like
last year's Vikings game.
I had to write about that Eagles game in the middle of Christmas, and it was like I can't write like, wow, the Eagles won. No, they let the Giants basically hang around the whole time. When after it was 20-3. They crash into each other on a kickoff return. Darius Slayton's beating everybody deep, and it's just like a pick six. Like, man, the Eagles just ain't right. And I'm not saying they don't have the talent or the coach can turn it around, but it just seems like there's nothing but bad vibes coming out of Philly.
Yeah, I would feel if I was watching like this Philly team as a fan, I would feel okay. We're scraping by and just getting by with these wins if they hadn't just lost like 42-19 to San Francisco. Like that to me, that's where it's different, because you're not playing these games to like scrape by the Giants in the regular season. You're playing to get playoff seeding now that you've had a taste of the Super Bowl. Like that's what these games are for. It seems very unlikely that they'll be able to get the number 1 overall seed, barring like a total collapse by the 49ers in the final 2 weeks of the season. But I don't know. It just seems like out of nowhere, most of the roster is the same as last year. Like you lose Javon Hargrave, but you add in Jalen Carter, which could be seen as like a 1-for-1 swap as a potential upgrade in the future. The defensive line's still great. You still have some quality talent at DB. Offense is still loaded, but you're just barely getting by in a lot of these games. It's like a copy of
a copy of a copy. Like it's like, yeah, these same guys are here, but just a little bit less. Everybody's just playing a little less good this year. That was terrible English, but whatever. You get it. Like Hurts looks like he's injured, and A.J. Brown had that really, really hot streak, and he's been okay since. Devontae Smith, okay. Their linebackers are kind of a problem. Their secondary, I don't know what happened, but their secondary is just not good. Like, again, like Darius Slayton just beating you deep. Okay, well, that's why when, the Seahawks are backed up at their 8-yard line, and I'm like, well, I don't think they're going 92 yards, but Eagles secondary, and sure enough, Drew Lock takes them at 92 yards. It's just kind of, it's hard to do this year after year. It's hard to, they had a storybook season last year. They're legitimately the best team of football from the kickoff of week 1 until the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl. And you come up a little short, and it's just not, it's hard to just keep that train going year after year.
Yeah. I remember going to the Giants-Eagles playoff game, the division round this past year. I was like, holy dude, like I know the Giants were kind of a fraudulent team at that point, but they blasted them, right? Ran right through them. And honestly, I know the next week that Brock Purdy got hurt, and I've talked about on the show, 49ers players and fans, they have a legitimate gripe with not being able to throw a pass in the NFC title game. I think that that's fair for them to feel upset about. They don't deserve to be ridiculed for feeling upset about that. But I'm not even sure if they had Brock Purdy for that Eagles team as was constructed last year and how they were playing. I don't think it's a guarantee they get past them, even if Brock Purdy was healthy.
No.
And then,
the Eagles are great in that game. I mean, of course, San Francisco had issues, but the Eagles are great.
And then you get to the Super Bowl, and like you said, you're probably the better team in that game until you got Mahomes at the end. Which, hey, there's no shame in that based on what we've seen in Mahomes all the way up to this point. But this team is different. Like last year when they played the Giants, they were winning by like 30 and 40 points. Now you're scraping by. Listen to the Seahawks.
Scraped by the Commanders. And I mean, just like games were last year, you're right. Like when they were winning by 24 last year, this year it's like, oh, okay, you held on to a 6-point win or whatever it is. It's just different. And 11-4, it's funny. They're 11-4. They're still a good team. They're still probably going to get the number 2 seed. But yet it just seems like everything is off.
Yeah, and I think we're at the point in the season where I think point differential tells a whole lot of the story. The Eagles have a plus 26 point differential.
That's it? Wow.
That's
plus
it.
26.
Yeah.
I thought they were at least about 50.
So they're in the same ballpark as the Los Angeles Rams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints. That's like the quality of football that they put together for the whole season, which is like, the Saints number kind of surprises me a little bit, but the Rams and the Eagles, I would say, are probably about on par with each other at this point in the season, which is a little bit scary if you're an Eagles fan, right? Because you're trying to win the Super Bowl.
One of our editors, Al Toby, keeps saying the Rams are going to go beat Philly in the first round. And I'm to the point where I'm like, I can't argue. Like, I don't know that necessarily I'm punching the ticket for Eagles -3 or whatever it's going to be. Let's put it that way. I mean, they're just every week is a slog for them. And I think the talent's there, so I don't want to give up on them. But man,
it's tough. It's tough for them. And I almost wonder like if they're just trying to figure out what this passing game looks like now that Steichen's in Indianapolis and he's doing such a good job over there. That seems like it's been a pretty like significant loss for just like the overall organization of this offense, because I just struggle to think that, you know, if you got an offense with like even without the quarterback, like the best offensive line in football, Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, DeAndre Swift, you should be able to score like in your sleep. And to their credit, like they still scored 33 points yesterday, but you know, you're kind of dragging ass over the past month of football. You know, you're barely scraping by against the Chiefs. You need a bunch of second half comebacks to come back. And even Jason Kelce got to a point where he was like, I don't know how we keep winning these games, because usually you don't win these games when you're always down in the second half. But it's kind of a testament to what they've been able to build in terms of just like the overall roster talent. But the cohesiveness doesn't quite seem the same this year.
Yeah, it seems like there's chemistry issues. There's some stories starting to get out from Philly. I don't think, like you said, like you lose. We don't focus enough on teams that lose coordinators. Like Steichen has been awesome with Indianapolis. Like that looks like a 3-win team to me that somehow has 8 wins. And even Gannon has the Cardinals pretty much in most games, at least, I think, playing above their talent level. Those two, they haven't adjusted well. The NFL is just kind of doing certain things to them, and there's no counter punch yet. And maybe that's not coming. I mean, we're going to hit January 1st pretty soon. You kind of are what you are. And I think this is just who the Eagles are.
Yeah, we'll see. I still want to believe in the player talent there, but like this seems like a team that is prime for a first round upset.
It really does.
Especially if it does come against the Rams with how they've been looking this week. But the Philly is always a tough place to play. I don't think you can shoehorn like any road team there. That's going to be tough. So we'll see what happens. I think the most interesting game from yesterday is one everyone will agree on. The Ravens going into San Francisco and just beating the absolute brakes off of the 49ers. I did not see this coming. I thought that I was like kind of right in the sense that I thought Christian McCaffrey was just going to have a field day against that defense, because like they got gashed by Kyron Williams a couple weeks ago. The run defense hasn't been all that sound. But they made Brock Purdy's life harder than anyone has made it since he started playing quarterback for the 49ers, outside of the game we talked about before where he literally could not throw a pass due to an elbow injury. How concerning is this game for the 49ers and their chances to win a Super Bowl this year?
I don't know. I'm trying hard not to overreact here because, look, teams have bad games. Unless you're the 72 Dolphins, you had a bad day, right? Like, it didn't look good. It really shattered this kind of era of invincibility of the 49ers. Like, obviously, nobody's scared of them anymore, whereas they might have been a week ago. But there's still a team that has so much talent on both sides of the ball. They're so well coached. I still don't think anybody in the NFC can beat them. I really don't. Like, do all of a sudden I feel like the Lions can go into San Francisco and win? No, I don't.
No.
And yeah, right? Like, who's going to beat them? And you're still, if you're the San Francisco 49ers, you play at the Commanders this week, and my goodness, if they lose that game, I don't see that happening. You host the Rams in Week 18. If you win those 2 games, and the Rams are no pushover, sure. If you win those 2 games, you are the number 1 seed in the NFC, and you have 2 home games to a Super Bowl. Like, what am I going to do? Sit here and tell you the 49ers are not the favorite in the NFC anymore? They're the betting favorite. I think the odds makers looked at this kind of like I am in a way and said, yeah, sure, okay, they may be not as invincible as they were a few days ago, but this is still the best team of football. We don't care what happened in a 1-game sample. The odds still have the 49ers as the Super Bowl favorite, Ravens number 2. And I can't say I disagree. I think they're a little more vulnerable. Obviously, if Brock Purdy throws 4 interceptions again, they're going to lose to somebody. But I don't know that this performance necessarily repeats. I think don't jump out I don't think anybody's jumping out the 49ers bandwagon necessarily. No. Just kind of saying, like, the way we were talking about them a few days ago might have been ridiculous. And honestly, maybe we should have been talking about the Ravens that way. I don't know if the stats are. I didn't have a chance to go back and look, but Ravens have obviously led at the 2-minute warning of the fourth quarter in every single game. I saw that the only other two teams that could say that were the 72 Dolphins and the 2007 Patriots.
It's hilarious.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, it's amazing that they've led every single game so far at the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter. It speaks to their dominance. They're great. That's a fantastic football team. And if they played again, I don't know that the 49ers couldn't beat them. Why not? Like, Kyle's going to make some adjustments. The Ravens aren't going to have 4 interceptions again, probably. It's still the 49ers are still an elite team. There's no question.
Yeah. And like, dude, if you go back through some of these losses, they've only had 3 that the Ravens have had this year. The Colts game, I feel like, was a pretty bad loss for them. They just, you have these teams, even as good as the Ravens are, where they get sloppy like towards the end of the games, and they just kind of got beat.
Wasn't it a big rainstorm? Like it was kind of fluky that way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the Steelers game, dude, like they should have won that game like 42-10.
Right.
And they dropped
all the
so many
passes.
Yeah, all the drop passes, so many big plays messed up. I think they had like on 3 separate drives, they had about 3 touchdowns dropped. That one should have been blown out. And then that's one of those games where if you give TJ Watt a chance to make a play at the end of the game, he might make it. And they ended up scoring after the 2-minute conversion, 2-minute warning, excuse me. And I think the last game, against the Browns, where they let Deshaun Watson dink and dunk his way back down the field. And then he had the 14 for 14 second half where he was throwing for like 2 yards down the field on each pass. And, bad tackling and bad spots that can get you too. So it doesn't really feel like these are losses where you need to be concerned. But to me, like this win over the 49ers and, you pair that with last week's win over Jaguars, where they just completely beat the crap out of them and suffocated them. I feel like his defense is back after a little stretch, maybe where they weren't quite as dominant as they have been early in the season. I mean, giving up 33 to the Browns, letting the Rams score 31 on you, that was kind of uncharacteristic for where they've been. But then they came right back and beat the crap out of this 49ers passing game, which really no one has been able to slow down all season. So I think the biggest takeaway from this game, just as far as like moving forward, is Ravens defense super for real. It's like super duper for real. Because I think just to go on the road and do what they did, 4 interceptions, 5 turnovers, like that's nothing to sneeze at with an offense that good. And also, the MVP feels like it's just going to come down to what quarterback on a winning game played well in Week 18. Like that's
yeah, it really might. I mean,
I've never seen this amount of flip flopping back to back to back because no one's really just coming out and grabbing it. So I guess Lamar Jackson is the MVP betting favorite right now with 2 weeks left to go. I'm fine giving it to him based on just like how much he means to the offense. Obviously, it's not his best statistical year because like in 2019, he really, really burned the league down. But hey, like he's got a chance to get close to 1,000 yards rushing and, like it's called 3,500 passing yards. It's a pretty good season.
He's been great. I mean,
he's been great.
I'm not going to go on my rant about nobody signing Lamar this offseason, but I will say if you aren't doing this whole like Baltimore is going to match anyway, you have been so gaslit by your NFL team. That's what
I feel the same way.
Because
I feel the same way.
Are you telling me for one, you just try, like get creative, do something. Somebody could have constructed an offer sheet to where Baltimore would have been like, uh-oh, this is bad. We're probably going to have to do it, but we're going to have to dump some chairs off of the ship to get this done because this is really, really creative and hard for us to. Anyway, you can catch me online anywhere complaining that every NFL team screwed this up with Lamar Jackson, but I really, truly think the MVP comes down to Lamar's probably going to win, but I think Josh Allen might steal it. I really do. Because if you start thinking about the different ways the season could turn out, I think the Bills are going to win the AFC East. I think the Dolphins lose to the Ravens. I think the Bills obviously beat the Patriots. Hopefully, goodness. And then I think the Bills beat the Dolphins in Week 18. And then I think voters are, like you said, who has a big game in Week 18? It's going to be Sunday night. The Bills beat the Dolphins for the AFC East title. And we're going to be like, whoa, Josh Allen had 49 touchdowns this year, and he dragged his team back to the number 2 seed? What? And then all of a sudden it's going to be Josh Allen's award. I can see this playing out. Maybe Lamar just wins it because he's the number 1 seed and voters like the number 1 seed quarterback and whatever.
Right.
But Josh has a serious chance to steal this award if the Bills win the AFC East, which I think they will. But wouldn't it be crazy? Let's say the Dolphins win on Sunday. listen, because all of a sudden they're number one seed if that happens, because they're going to have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Ravens. If the Dolphins beat the Bills in Week 18, they get the number one seed. Does it go to Tua? Does it go? Do we just revert back to like, well, he's the number one seed, I guess we got to give it to him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, because I also kind of feel like through this whole Brock Purdy escapade where he was the MVP leader, people were just kind of waiting for it. Come on, this is not it. This is not the MVP.
Nobody wanted to vote for Brock Purdy. Nobody wanted
right. This is not the most valuable player in football. And it does. And the Brock Purdy discussion fascinates me so much, because I think people get into a spot where they look at the numbers and you're like, how the hell could this not be the most valuable quarterback in football? But then when the mistakes start compounding for him in that game, no one actually thinks that he's going to be the guy to bring them back and drag them back into that game.
You're right. Yeah.
So like it's
tweet about that basically, like
pretty much.
Yeah, they didn't even try it here. They know.
like we all know. Look, they have the fewest amount of passing attempts in the league for a reason. One, because they score with such great efficiency that they just don't run as many plays as other teams. But two, you don't. Do you really want to get to games where Brock Purdy's thrown like 40 or 45 times? Probably not. And to me, there has to be a level of feeling that goes on with the MVP more than just like looking at the numbers. Because if you look at the numbers, yeah, you would probably think Brock Purdy is like far and away the best quarterback in football. But when you watch the games, you know that's not true. And it's not even just a slight, and it's just, let's pump the brakes on some of the stuff that like we're saying and think about. Like I saw someone call him Drew Brees with mobility. Like, whoa. Drew
Brees, one of the 5 best quarterbacks of all time.
Easily one of the Mount Rushmore quarterbacks of this past era of football. No. That's not what this is. So yeah, Brock Purdy throws 4 interceptions. Ravens defense is great. I will say, like, if I was a 49ers fan, the way that I would be coping with that game would be, hey, a good chunk of these interceptions were tip passes that happened to land.
It was a little flaky.
But, I don't think they were all great throws. Like, there's a reason why they got tipped and ended up in the air like that. But usually those passes just hit the ground. So hopefully you can get back into a space where you're not dealing with a negative game script that really exposes what some of your flaws are at quarterback in the drop back passing game. And you can kind of keep this thing moving. But I would love to see a matchup of this in the Super Bowl again. If
I was just gonna say that, like, I bring it on, because I think that the 49ers would all of a sudden be the disrespected team. The Ravens played that card all week. As ridiculous as it is for an 11-3 team to be like, we're being disrespected. It was a little true because nobody was talking about them. They were 6.5-point underdogs by kickoff. I think the 49ers could play that card. Then Kyle would make adjustments. All those tip passes aren't going to be intercepted, as you said. I think it would be a fantastic Super Bowl. I really do.
Yeah. So let's hope for Ravens 49ers in Vegas. That sounds like a very, very,
I think that's our best matchup, right? I still haven't given up on the Bills. I really haven't. Like, I know there's got to be like a 12-step program here where I could break this habit of always believing in the Bills. But why not the Bills? Like, they're going to be the hot team going into the playoffs. I do think they're going to win the AFC East. I just could see them making a Super Bowl this year after everybody crossed them out, and we're going to be watching the America's game next September, and they're all, Josh Allen's going to be, talking about, oh, this guy wrote us off, and they're going to be showing a clip of everybody, saying the Bills are trash and all this. You can just see this coming where the Bills can get on a run.
Well, I think that's a good avenue to jump into your power rankings, which you release every Wednesday on yahoosports.com. Have you sketched out what the top of it's going to look like for tomorrow?
I already got it. We went up today, so I can, off the top of my head.
But today's Tuesday, right?
Today's Tuesday. No, it goes up Tuesday.
I'm not dumb.
You're all good. You're all good. It's Christmas is throwing me off, man, so much. Like, I had 3 different editors text me this morning, like, "Hey, where's this thing we usually do?" And I'm like, "Wait, it's Tuesday." Like, oh, that's right. What do you want from me? Like, it's Christmas on a. Obviously, I have the Ravens at 1, 49ers at 2. I'm not going crazy on the 49ers. I have the Bills at 3. Like, why not? Like, I mean, this team has everything you want. I have them over the Dolphins, which I know seems unfair, but I think they're going to win the AFC East. And if these 2 teams played on a neutral field tomorrow, I'd pick the Bills, and I think most other people would too. Maybe I'm being disrespectful of the Dolphins. By the way, if the Dolphins win on Sunday at the Ravens, all of a sudden, everything we've talked about the last 24 hours, it just goes in the garbage because the Dolphins are all of a sudden your number one seed. Tua might be your MVP. I don't know.
I feel like that's okay though. I'm so used to things I just said being tossed in the trash.
Yeah, it's
during
NFL,
the season.
Man. It's NFL. Like this thing changes every single week. So those are my top 4. Cowboys at 5. Obviously, you can't put them ahead of the Dolphins. Even though I wasn't. Look, the Cowboys played well in that game. I had no problem with them losing on the last second at Miami. Fine. The one team I still do have the Eagles at 6, just because at some point when you're doing these power rankings. The rest of it has to matter. Why are we playing the games, right? And it still is an 11-4 team, so I couldn't get them lower than 6. I had the Lions at 7. Let's not forget the Lions. I mean, we were questioning them a couple weeks ago when they lost to the Bears. Like, I know they're 11-4. Then the Chiefs, and then the Browns. The Browns are the one fan base who was like, "Why are we at 9?" And I might be wrong. Am I wrong? Like, it seems like the Browns are better than 9, but which of those teams ahead of them are you put? Who would you have the Browns ranked ahead of? Who I just mentioned.
Look. As nice as his Joe Flacco run has been, and to be clear, he's been by far the best quarterback that has played football for them this year, including Deshaun Watson.
Oh yeah.
It's still good to have a healthy amount of skepticism about 38-year-old, almost 39-year-old Joe Flacco. I think that's a fair reason to have him at 9. Like, yeah, defense is great. Joe Flacco's rolling. Amari Cooper is rolling, but. Did you hear me say Joe Flacco is your quarterback? Like for the rest of the season?
At some point, me and you are going to be on a podcast in a month, and we're going to be like, are we really picking Joe Flacco over Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game? Really? We're doing that?
AFC sure title game.
Yeah, right? Like no. I don't know that I am. But which of those teams? Who would you have the Browns ranked ahead of? Where did I get this wrong? Would you have them ranked ahead of the Chiefs? Browns or Chiefs?
No. I would take the Chiefs.
Lions?
I might put them over the Lions.
Okay, that's fair.
The Lions probably not the Eagles. But it's not fair though, because I was about to say the Lions defense scares me, but the Eagles defense also scares me. Like they just got diced up by Tyrod Taylor, who hasn't played basically all season.
But when I look at this, when I was sitting there last night at the end of the Ravens game when I'm kind of filling this stuff out, and I'm like, Browns at 9 just seems wrong because I could talk myself into them being a contender. I don't think there's a lot of contenders this year, but. You look at what the Browns have done. They've been the number one defense of football since week 1 when they trashed the Bengals. We're like, whoa, Jim Schwartz, hello. And now Flacco's on this heater. I don't know that he can keep this up, but why not? Like he's really playing well. Amari Cooper coming off a big game. They've already beat the Ravens and the 49ers. If every single Browns fan wants to remind you, great record against good teams. Like every box you want to check, the Browns check. It's just hard to get them to like, yes, this is a Super Bowl team. It just is. We might be sitting in Vegas saying, wow, yeah, I guess I should have followed my gut here because this did look like a Super Bowl team. But it's hard when Joe Flacco is your quarterback, no Nick Chubb. There's some deficiencies on the offense still.
Yeah, but I feel like myself in general, I'm probably a little bit stricter when I think of teams that can actually win the Super Bowl because I don't think that I would put the Lions in that category.
No,
I don't know.
I wouldn't either.
That's tough to say that this team is going to overcome the 49ers and the Cowboys. Well, they got a chance to prove themselves against the Cowboys the upcoming weekend, and that game looks more gettable than maybe it did 2 weeks ago. But still, I'm inclined to think of the Cowboys as one of the premier teams in football.
Are they a contender? Are Cowboys a contender? Because remember, they're going to have to go win 3 straight road games to make a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I would say they are a contender. Losing this past game against Miami was really bad for them in terms of the path towards getting to the Super Bowl because you don't want to play all these road games. But I don't know. I think Dak Prescott's good enough. I think CeeDee Lamb's certainly good enough. To me, they just have the connection of top talent in the right places. And then you have the assassin on the other side with Michael Parsons, who has continued just his demolition tour against offenses this year. I think that, maybe they haven't been playing the cleanest football lately, but when I'm starting to stack roster talent, they have to be up there with, some of the other contenders. So I would place them over Detroit in that tier. This quarterback's better, defense is better. I think their defense is suspect to some of the more forward-thinking schemes in the league. I don't know how much of a chance they really stand against the San Francisco in the playoffs. One, because they lost 42-10 this year, and two, because the Shanahan thing on a multitude of levels seems to be Dan Quinn's kryptonite. Going back to when he was head coach of the Falcons. But like they still have the top in town where you feel like, I feel like they should be able to at least give themselves a chance to get past these teams in the playoffs. With the Lions, I just don't know if I can.
It's hard to get them there. Other than like weird things happen, right? Like, I mean, whatever. Like, we've seen teams make crazy runs of Super Bowl before. Can I offer you my chaos theory that I just want to get out there here on December 26th? The Cowboys are going to have to start number 5 seed, obviously. They're going to have to go play at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers can get them. I think the Buccaneers are playing some ball right now. I mean, the way they beat the Jaguars, and I know the Jaguars have their issues right now, but the Buccaneers going to the Packers, who were hot at the time, whatever, and then blasting the Jaguars like they did. Packers and Jaguars. And I mean, these aren't like, oh my God, wins, but you can see this team getting confidence in Baker Mayfield. They still got a lot of dudes left from like that Super Bowl team. Like, how crazy would it be if the Buccaneers beat the Cowboys in wild card round? Because then all of the fire Mike McCarthy, trade Dak Prescott, you are setting up for an off season of just absolute, just chaos in Dallas. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts.
And I can see the Bucs doing it. I honestly can see the Buccaneers winning that game.
Just because the one area of like superstition that I will allow myself to dive into every once in a while is like some of these teams are just cursed. And some of these teams are cursed at certain points of the year. So like, I don't think that anyone would even be surprised if the Cowboys blew that game to the Bucs at the end of the year.
And all the pressure would be on the Cowboys. All of it. The Buccaneers lose that game. Everybody's like, you won your division at least. Good job. Todd Bowles, come on back next year.
We all said back in August the NFC South was a joke, and here it was a joke. Like, that's not even a bad loss.
Nobody. It's not even like the Buccaneers would obviously not want to lose, but it's all the pressures on the Cowboys because the Cowboys understand that market and they know. And if you lose to the Buccaneers round 1, you are just in for it all off season. And I don't know, man. I'm just saying. I'm interested in that game more than most people. I'm kind of selling myself on this Buccaneers team being good. I don't know. I just watched them play. And I'm like, did Rashad Rice play well? Mike Evans, Baker's dealing right now. I don't know how it's all happening, but they're rounding out into form right now.
The Buccaneers, to me, always had an interesting like discussion cycle this offseason where I think a lot of people were expecting them to just kind of bottom out. I was like, dude, like when you look at who they have left over from the Tom Brady regime, it's not even close to the worst roster in football.
No.
Like, you could do so much worse than what they're doing. And I guess it's probably just people being down on Baker Mayfield. But, you know, like if we go back to the Jalen Hurts experiment again, and let's not think about quarterback for a second. I hand you an offense that features Tristan Wirfs, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, a couple other guys in the offensive line that are young but coming into form. Rashad White's not a bad running back. And we flip over to the defense, and it's not as dominant as it was. Maybe the years they were winning, you know, they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, but you still have a whole lot of talent, especially in the back end, and you still got Vita Vea up front.
Yeah, Vita Vea might be the most underrated dude in football now that people have woken up to Chris Jones. Like, there's some blue chip guys on this team, and they're playing well. I feel good for Todd Bowles. I feel good for Baker too. It's great to have good stories at quarterback, and this year quarterback's been down. He's balling right now, and I think that team, just the way he is, you know, that kind of irrational confidence dude.
Yeah,
I think that team kind of rallies around that. Like they were losing. It was a Falcons game, and it looked like their season was done. That team didn't look scared. They drove right down the field and won the game and basically won the division that day.
They've been good, you know, and I think that's been cool to see because one, I don't want to see the Falcons make the playoffs this year. I don't think they stand to gain anything from going and hosting.
Is that it? Is this an Arthur thing?
I don't even care about art. I just need a quarterback, bro. Like I need a quarterback. Yeah. Okay. And it's funny when we're going back to the Lamar Jackson stuff earlier because the Falcons were the first team to come out and say, "Hey, we're not interested."
They were so excited.
They were so excited to say that we're not interested in Lamar Jackson, and then they go to
greatest players in the world. Yeah,
yes, legitimately one of the greatest football players that I've ever seen.
I remember when it was me, you, and maybe C. Rob on a podcast in March, and we're like, "Oh my God, this is going to happen." the Falcons are going to get Lamar. It would have set the city on fire. You would have made so much money on everything. Like, oh my, what are they doing? What are they doing?
And now you're playing musical chairs with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke to close the season. You know, and the best part is Arthur Blank at the owners' meeting. They asked him about it. He was like, "Oh, you know, we kind of struggle with the idea of paying someone who gets hurt like that." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, okay.
You guys had Julio Jones for a decade, and it was cool, bro.
Right.
It was awesome, actually. Like, I'll take the 3 games or whatever practice time he doesn't want to play because I know on Sundays it'll be okay. That's a frustrating team, but I need a quarterback.
I didn't mean to trigger you like that, man. Because this is
no, it's fine. I triggered myself because I think that this is a fine for me personally. This is a fine NFC South champion. Don't want to see the Saints win ever. Although I think it would be funny this year to watch Derek Carr trying to win a playoff game. You know, Falcons don't need a Panthers so far away. I don't really care about the Bucs, so the Bucs can take this. I hope they at least give us a game in the wild card round because it seems like we're like probably 1 week away from being locked into the Cowboys as the 5 seed. Unless the Eagles.
I think both teams are over. If you look at DVOA's playoff odds, I think the Buccaneers are over 90% to get the 4 seed, and the Cowboys are over 90% to get a 5 seed at this point.
Yeah,
I believe that's true.
The Eagles to close the season, they have the Cardinals and the Giants. So I would imagine that they will handle business in the season 13-4, and then walk into the NFC East title, which is I think it's gonna be a fun game between Dallas and Tampa Bay if we get there. Assuming we get there, and now we just got to wait and see what these final seedings are. The last question that we have about the playoff picture: can the Raiders sneak in here?
Oh my goodness! I was looking at that this morning. They might. Like, if you beat the Colts, they play at the Colts this week. Obviously, the Colts are 8-7. They're one of those wild card teams. If you go and beat them somehow, all of a sudden you finish, I believe, with the Broncos at home. Yes, because they started in Denver week 1. You could beat the Broncos. The Broncos are probably waving the white flag the rest of the season after seeing their hopes end. All of a sudden a Raider. Like, there's no doubt that Antonio Pierce gets the job then, although it didn't work for Rich Bisaccia a few years ago. But I looked at that math, and I do playoff projections every Wednesday morning. And it took a long time before I penciled in the Colts at 7 because I was like, I think the Raiders might be able to steal this. Ultimately, I think the Colts beat them on Sunday. Still, that offense that, like you said, had 42 passing yards or whatever, going on the road again. I don't know that they could beat the Colts in Indy, but if they do, I think they're going to beat the 7 seed.
Yeah. So we'll see. I would love to see the Raiders make the playoffs just because I think they're a good brand for the league. When it's healthy, they have a really cool uniform combo. I don't know how I would feel about watching Aiden O'Connell in the playoffs because.
Right. But none of these 7 seeds the only team that would be interesting as a 7 seed is a CJ Stroud Texans team. I'd love to see him in the playoffs because he's been so great this year. But he's
got to get healthy first, man.
Yeah, he's got to get healthy. I don't even know that. That was a scary concussion he had.
Man, I think sometimes you get lost in the season, and I was like, damn, CJ's about to miss like 3 weeks with a concussion.
Yeah,
it's not a good sign. So hopefully he's getting better, and because obviously it's funny, like even with the time he's missed, no one thinks that anyone's coming for this Rookie of the Year crown, regardless. So
I don't know, man. Puka.
Oh, Puka, that's a good one.
He's running. He's going up the. Puka's gonna. This is a really interesting question. I was at a betting show talking about this, and the guys on there were talking about. Look, Puka sets the NFL single season receiving record, which he's in line for. And CJ
receptions
misses all
record?
The last yards. For a rookie.
For a rookie.
Receiving yards for a rookie. He's on pace to set that record. And CJ misses the last 4 games. Or let's say he comes back for the last game and really struggles. And it's the Jets game where he got hurt. It was a struggle. All of a sudden, you can make an argument for Puka Nacua being the rookie of the year. I don't think the voters would take a receiver over a quarterback that had a pretty much historic year. I think Stroud's going to win it. But if that plays out, Nacua sets the big record. Stroud doesn't play well the rest of the season. All of a sudden, a race that they took off the board. The odds were off the board at BetMGM for a while because it was like, Stroud's such a big favorite. We're not even taking bets on anybody else. And now all of a sudden, it's a question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't. It's something I've watched Nacua have this season. Also, pat myself on the back. So my buddy Arif Hassan, who covers the Vikings, he does the the big board, like composite big boards, where he just basically smashes everyone's big board together to get one list. Yahoo Sports was the highest on Puka Nacua of anyone that Arif put together. I had him at 90th overall on the big board.
He's good. Like, he's legitimate. Like, every week, it's just like, okay, I don't know how this guy slipped to the 5th round. I have no idea, but he's good. He's legit. Man, he's going to be good for a while, too. He's probably your best receiver. I hate to say that, but he's probably your best receiver right now.
He probably is right now.
I just don't think he's healthy. Yeah, I mean, he's just not the same guy, at least right now, because of the injuries.
The Rams, low-key, had a crazy draft this year without a first-round pick. They drafted like 4, like Steve Avila, the guard, is good. Byron Young is one of the better run young pass rushers in the league. Kobe Turner, the other defensive tackle they drafted, is pretty good. It was so good, it kind of made you forget that Stetson Bennett just like disappeared from the team this season.
Wasted that pick,
Hasn't been back, I don't think so. Hopefully everything's good with Stetson too.
Yeah. By the way, is McVay coach of the year?
I'm
starting to make the case, because who else is it right now? It keeps going back and forth.
By the criteria that we use, I think he probably is, because I don't think anyone saw the Rams being good.
Yeah, I thought they were a 3-win team.
Right.
I was like,
we didn't even know if Stafford was going to be able to play this season. Really,
right? He's coming off a terrible year. Kupp was coming off surgeries. I mean, Aaron Donald's has been talking about retirement for a couple of years. I thought this is going to bottom out. This is going to be really, really bad. And here they are, not just being probably a playoff team, but a team nobody wants to mess with in the playoffs. Why not Sean McVay's coach of the year? Like, I think he's done more with this roster than anybody expected.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, because I don't really like the criteria that we use all the time.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible.
No, because I would just like, why is Kyle Shanahan not coach of the year?
Well, watch Monday night. Why is it John Harbaugh coach of the year?
Why is John Harbaugh? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's weird, like how you get dinged for winning too many games.
No, I know. Like, we expected too much of you before the year. Like, we thought you were, well, so what? Like, just because we were wrong about the Rams roster doesn't mean that McVay's a genius.
If LeBron performs like LeBron, maybe he should be the MVP. I don't know. That's how I feel about coach of the year. But this is a good place to jump off this episode of the Exempt List. Thanks to Frank for stopping by. Frank, before we let you go, anything you want to let people know that you're working on? Look out for?
Nothing off the top of my head. Just, I'm working on figuring out what day of the week it is, man. Like, this Christmas thing screwed me up. It's going to screw me up all week.
He sends a voicemail at speakpipe.com/0blitz. Ask a question, hottest take, make fun of the show, make fun of me. We will listen and reply to them on the show. We'll be back with another episode of the Exempt List every Tuesday. Tune in tomorrow for an episode of Inside Coverage with Jason Fitz, Charles Robinson, and Jory Epstein. I'm Charles McDonald. You can find me on Twitter at @4verts. You can find Frank on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. You can find Stone Rochelle, our producer behind the glass, on Twitter at SJ Rochelle. And we will see you next week.